So here we are, guys, with another of my presentation. Always sorry for my English, that is not so good, but I hope you understand the message. And what I would like to present you today, it is another of my kit, another article of my little production of resin items. This time is, let me close the piece in the background. This time it's this racer. It's a Dino 206S. It was the hill climb racer made by Ferrari in 1967, and it is a kit that I produced. I think now it's something like 3 or 4 years ago already. Because mostly I like it so much. This car, it was a little one, a little racer, absolutely stunning in looked like a little P4, that type of car. I still didn't study so well the developing of the real car, but it seems that it was made nearly by the same hands producing the P4 in 1967, so the overall design of the car, it's reminding of that era, And inside the box, let me see if I can place something under for the camera here. Inside the box, it's a very easy kit, but it's a very rare model, it's a very rare item that not so many have in their own collection. It was casted not by my actual producer, but from another guy that I had back in time, very skilled also, but he changed activity now and he worked with hospital, so we lost him. And the parts, I will try to make a little showing up of the parts. The parts are casted in a gray resin, in a very nice gray and smooth resin, and I obtained this master working on something that I don't know what I really get. Many say it can be a modular item, it can be, I don't know what, it can be a slot, cox. I simply started with something that was casted in an ugly plastic red material that didn't look at all like it is now, and they changed the body shell and they changed many details to obtain the final look. I think looking online that the real derivation of this car was probably the modular kit, that was available on the market more than 20 years ago right now, and I never found them again. It was absolutely very nice, but you have some minor mistakes that I corrected. The biggest issue that I found in that model that I started to work with, it was mostly that the original kit had a completely closed engine bay. That for me was a big lack, because one of the nicest part in this car was, of course, the lines and the proportion, but of course it should be nice to open the entire area of the back. So if you get any other release of this 206S, many call that SP and so on, but the real name should be 206S. The biggest difference, like I said, it was this one in the back, and my model have a completely full open engine bay that will allow you to finish it in a full detail model, like a model with showing up the engine and showing up all the mechanical details of the drivetrain and so on. So in the beginning I produced just this model, and I made it available mostly because I knew that there was a big request about these models around the world, because it was so impossible to find anything else in this scale related to the racer Dino. This is the racer car. It is named like a Dino, so not a properly Ferrari, but it was just a racing model and produced in one single car existing in 1967. All the other versions have been modified in 2012 Montagna, and it was basically the same car, always evolved. It was just a little racer. So the model consists basically in the main body shell and the under chassis, quite easy, and just basically you have in this model the cockpit and the floor, where to close the model, and little racing parts with the windshield frame and the rear edge that is very easy because this resin is extremely soft, maybe too soft in some in some models. Like I had some issues with one of my first release of the first RSR Porsche 74, and it's extremely easy to cut. And if you compare this with my latest production in resin, the yellow resin is probably more nicer than this because the surface remain even more smooth, but it became extremely harder to cut compared to this one. This is much softer type of resin, so it's very easy to work with and to make it like you want, you know, to increase the detail. Of course, the fine details is I don't know if you can see, it's nearly transparent, so it means that the resin is extremely thin. The main in the central part, you know, so this part has been reworked because of course it was not this way in the original model. And I also provided a small bag of accessories with the wheel bolt, a nice steering wheel. This was taken from a photo etched and very detailed steering wheel, and two little exhaust, and a small detail like mirrors and lights molded in transparent resin, and the double version of the wheel nuts, as you prefer, because, you know, depending from the pictures there is a little difference in this stuff. So I took them both in 24 scale and I made them available in this way, as well as probably the most important feature in this car. It is the transparent vacuum formed windshield that and front light covering that was produced by a quite good friend of mine. It's extremely clean transparent plastic. This showed here is closed in a blister with a protective plastic over. This white is a protective plastic that you have to take it away when you build up the model and take the dimes and reproduce the front lights. It must be fitted over there, you know. In the box also you will find the wheels. There have been a lot of discussion about this kind of wheels because, in my opinion, the most correct wheel was this type, you know, with this kind of rim inside. I don't know if you can see that quite good in the camera. That type of rims with the holes in the metal rim, and the last part that you will find in this box is a very little logo decal and some dimes that will help you in fixing the front spoilers. She had some little spoiler and some smaller triangles up there in the rear corners up there that can be very easily obtained simply cutting very thin plastic and placing them here. If you check that picture, you know, also for this model there is a nearly infinite folder of pictures that I achieved during the years, so you can find a lot of documentation to make the type of racer that you like more. And the final part that I produced in a second time because it was extremely hard for me to produce all this stuff. It was, I think it was my second or third kit made in resin, so there was a big expectation to have this stuff, you know, something that I made and I wanted deeply to have, like all the other stuff that I produce mostly for my own collection. Then if there is something more and modeler ask around that, of course, why not? Let's do something easy and produce something to make them happy in the same way. So this is the engine, and the engine was mostly derivated, honestly, from the engine that you can find inside Fujimi Dino 236 GT. That was the street Dino, where the main difference was mostly about the transaxle, because this racer had this transaxle with the gearbox placed in this position and the main axle around here. Instead, in the Dino production, this was in the longitudinal way, you know, so it was completely in a different position with different parts. So my work was mostly to keep the headers of the engine and recreate the engine exactly as it featured inside the Dino, you know. And there is a lot of finely cast details This guy was extremely skilled, honestly, in producing these parts. And yes, I think it's a great reproduction of the Dino V6 engine. Also on the headers, you cannot see probably on the images here because it's too dark, I see, but there was the Dino logo written over. I added a little battery where you can plug the cables arriving to the engine, so there is a lot of work that you can do, but the basic part is this. So this is all the basics that you need to end the model. And the finished model is this one. This is the demo model that I built up. I think now it's 2 or 3 years ago, also probably more if I'm not wrong. And as you can see, now I have few light here to show this detail. Let me see if I can help this way. Okay, mostly there is all the engine that should be visible down there, you know, exactly in this way. And the overall look of the car is, I think, taken by this little reproduction. I used this kind of wheel bolt, and probably in my opinion the only mistake that I made on this building, it was to make it a little too much glossy. You know, when you reproduce models, all the people around want to see glossy model, glossy, glossy, glossy. Everybody asks for eye candy. Glossy, like, you know, like a candy that you keep it in the mouth for hours and then they became so glossy. Instead, probably in 1967, this Ferrari was absolutely not so glossy, even more being a racer. So racers were just a killer machine that have to run and have to win, and nothing more. So probably just during the presentation, even if you see the picture of my folder, the car looks red and shiny, of course, but not so glossy like I did here. It was a 2K. It was the famous and infamous 2K glossy finish that I wanted to use at the time, and became absolutely, yes, nice and glossy red, but in my opinion a little too bit for this kind of car. The only stuff that I added more was inside there a little helmet, because this car, that helmet down there, this car was driven by Lorenzo Bandini in '67. It was an heroical pilot, you know, in the same level of Bruce McLaren and Chris Amon and that generation of amazing pilot. They wanted to make this like his personal car, because he was racing in Formula 1 as well as the Hirklimb championship, you know, versus little Porsches and so on. They were very, very cute car because they were very little and extremely fast. They look like, you know, the modern Lotus and so on, the Lotus Elise and something like that, you know. But these were Ferrari, so the name and the legend was extremely bigger, even more at the time, you know. And this is my model. So the main feature is inside this one you can basically show up the engine and all the mechanical part. There is some minor detail, like, you know, the suspension bars and so on, and part of the main frame inside that I had to scratch build because it was a nonsense to provide inside the racing model. There is no possibility to make them nice, casted nice, when they are so thin and so small in details, you know. It's just a complication, and probably the cost and the price of the final object will increase just more and more. Anyway, this is the model. I produced quite a bit of this car, you know, and still I have available few of them, I guess. I should check better in my stuff, you know, but there is always the possibility to have some, and if there is the request, I can also recast them by the new printer, you know. But even if right now I'm more concentrated in other projects, this was something that I liked so much, and like I always say, to have mostly for my collection. I wanted this Dino 206S to be one of the queen of my personal collection of racers, you know. Thanks for watching, guys, and hope you like the video. Subscribe to the channel, and see you to the next presentation.